Done.
But it bothered me when you were talking about Islam being not a religion of peace. Muhammad was a very peaceful man.
No, he wasn't.
Yes, well, yes,
no.
And he had a great respect for women. His wives were given a great deal of power over him. And
have you been reading Karen Armstrong? Is that where this is coming from?
No. I've read Karen Armstrong, but no. And, you know, what's happening now with Islam is it's bastardized, just like all the other religions. But it bothers me that you.
So you're saying the true Islam, if we could only return to it, would just nullify all of my concerns about Islam?
I don't think any religion is a good religion, but it bothers me that you singled Islam out, and that you said that, you know, that actually that Muhammad was a peaceful man.
Okay,
and
well,
that
Muhammad, who knows who Muhammad was? I mean, Muhammad's actually closer to history than Jesus and many of the other patriarchs, so we know more about him. But obviously, there's a lot of uncertainty about what's factual. But the example of Muhammad, as held in Islam universally, is not of a pacifist. He was a conquering warlord who spread the faith with the sword quite successfully. And the expectation is this is a way of being in the world that is by example totally justified. Now this is different from Jesus. Jesus did not spread the faith with a sword. He was essentially a hippie who got crucified. Now that's a different example, and it's a difference that is a benefit to Christianity at the moment, because Christianity, in Christianity, you can come up with a rationale for saying, listen, it's not about conquering the world. It's not about winning in this life. We just got to wait for Jesus to come back and get raptured. But you can't really do that in Islam. Christianity has a line like, render unto God that which is God, and unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. And that line from Matthew, has done huge work to separate Christianity from claim upon terrestrial power. Now, it's imperfect work, and there are a lot of crazy Christians who want terrestrial power, but at least there's some rationale within Christianity for doing that. That rationale doesn't exist in Islam. There's no line in the Quran which says, listen, guys, this is not about politics, it's not about controlling people's lives. You can be privately religious and let everyone else flourish.
But the subjugation of women was not something that Muhammad was
interested in. You're just not. Please just go read the Quran and read some significant. Okay, well then surely you read the part in the Quran which talked about husbands scourging or whipping, depending on the translation, their wives who are disobedient. Now,
that's in Judaism also.
What was that? Okay, so it's in Judaism, but I will grant you that the worst books ever written were in the Old Testament. Okay, but there's a reason why Jews are not stoning their wives for adultery at this moment in history, and we can talk about those reasons. What I said about Islam was intended to counter exactly the presuppositions you are now bringing to me. I don't have time to do it here, but I can only invite you to read more on the subject, because we are deluding ourselves with a lot of wishful thinking. I mean, we are desperate to believe that all of the problems in the world are of our own making if we could just spread more money around and behave better on the global stage.
On the Muslim world.
Right.
Is that true, Sam?
No, alas, it's not true.
Okay.
I guess what it was made true, apparently, or at least to the satisfaction of many people, by Chris Hedges, who went around in every stop on his book tour, radio, television, print, telling people that this was in fact my position. And many people like Glenn Greenwald and Reza Aslan and your old colleague Cenk Uygur have reiterated this claim. There are a couple of passages in my first book, The End of Faith, where I talk about how a certainty about paradise and about martyrdom as the best way to get there just destroys the logic of nuclear deterrence, of mutually assured destruction that we had, that kept us more or less poised on the brink of a mutual annihilation with the Soviet Union for so many years. And I just pointed out what I think is an obvious fact, and still is an obvious fact, should be an obvious fact, and a very troubling one, that if you have a regime that has that is the psychological equivalent of the 19 hijackers, people who woke up in the morning wanting to fly a plane into a building. That is a regime who you can't, they're not rational actors. You can't, or if they're rational, they're rational within a context of believing that they're going to paradise this way, right? So
what's the rational part of that?
Yeah, it's, but if you believe that, it's rational to blow up the world. It's rational to hit the wall at 400 miles an hour. So, this is not, so I pointed out the obvious fact that we have to avoid this circumstance at all costs, and there's no one who should be more cognizant of this problem than so-called moderate Muslims or secular Muslims or non-jihadist, Muslims. And we have to collectively find some path to a future in which you don't have a true jihadist regime armed with long-range nuclear weapons. And all of those, so long-range is crucial. I mean, so you have Pakistan. Pakistan already has nuclear weapons. Do I think we should execute a nuclear first strike on Pakistan? No. Pakistan is not, first of all, a jihadist regime, and though, they're one coup away from being taken over by one, but they don't have the warheads that can deliver these nukes to the capitals of Europe or to the U.S. It's a very different circumstance, and so yes, no, there's nothing that I say in that book that suggests that we should be nuking Iran, and so it's just, this is, all I was talking about is how the kind of game theoretic logic of nuclear deterrence that we lived, however precariously under with the Soviet Union, falls apart once you admit to yourself that it's possible that truly suicidal religious maniacs can get their hands on these weapons. And so all I was calling for is our awareness that really is a game changer, and we have to avoid that at all costs.
Right, and you said this was just a few passages in your book. It was literally about a page, right?
It's like a paragraph or two, yeah.
Right, so when people have blown this up into something that somehow this is like this massive idea that you have. Actually, a good friend of mine who I agree with on a lot of things and disagree on some other things, what he says to me in relation to this is that you're laying the philosophical groundwork for a nuclear first strike.
Well, I mean, people respond to this passage as though I invented nuclear weapons, right? Or that I think they're a good thing. Right? I'm just talking about the reality of our world. We have a nuclear policy, right? We have a first strike.